Hello and welcome to our Lunch and Learn presentation. I'm Christina Wyckoff, the historical archaeologist here at the Oklahoma State Historic Preservation Office, and I'm joined today by Nancy Calhoun. Nancy is a volunteer and former research librarian at the Oklahoma Historical Society. So thank you so much for joining us, Nancy. Nancy is going to present on how to research allotments in Oklahoma.
Okay, and the allotments I'm going to be mainly talking about are the allotments for the 5 tribes in eastern Oklahoma. Although the process was virtually the same across Oklahoma, but this I'll be talking about. I'll be talking about the Cherokee, the Muskogee Creek, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, and the smaller tribes that were enrolled in these tribes, such as the Delawares in northeastern Oklahoma, not the Delawares in western Oklahoma. So this is a map of Oklahoma, and it portrays what the territories were like in approximately the time of the Dawes Commission. The Dawes Commission was created in the late 1880s. Because people wanted to move into Indian territory that were not tribal members, and also they were in the. So this map is available in the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Library, and you can just pick them up at the front of the room when you go in. There's lots of educational materials available there. This map also shows how the land in western Oklahoma, when and how it was opened up. There were also allotments out in this area, like the Cheyenne and Arapaho, the Kiowa, Comanche, and Apache. The Big Pasture area was by drawing, the Wichita and Caddo. My family was up here in the area of the Wichita and Caddo, and they did not receive homesteads, but they were able to lease allotments, and they were sharecroppers. So the process for the western tribes also produced plat maps, and we'll be looking at the Cherokee and the Creek maps. So you can probably get some information on where the allotments were for the different tribal members at the tribal offices. But they also have, there's a set of books by Greg Boyd, and they have maps of the first landowners in some of these western counties. And he also has available a website. And these are available at some libraries, or you can get individual subscriptions. And they also show the allotments after statehood. So the purpose of the Dawes Commission, one of them, was to determine who were the members of these 5 tribes. And then they would give the land ownership to individuals. The land previously was owned in common by the nations, although people could have, the area where their home was and their barns were, and they farmed in certain areas, but it wasn't deeded to them like we have deeds now. They felt that this was necessary for statehood, to bring Indian Territory and Oklahoma Territory in as a state. So, but it would also open the territory to settlement by non-tribal members. So there's different procedures for the nations, but basically they're the same. The full-bloods would receive first choice, then others who weren't full-blood will be able to select their allotments, then intermarried whites. I read in the Muskogee Phoenix newspaper where the allotment process was going to start the next day, and the widows and orphans would be able to select first. Now, you usually hear 160 acres, which is a quarter section, but there are actually different amount of acres. We'll be looking at one for the Rogers family, and they each received only about 15 acres. But some people received huge amount of acres, and that may be because they had political pull or because it was very poor quality land. If someone had land in the rich bottom land, they would probably receive 160 acres. But someone up where it was rocky and it was just grassland, they might receive more acreage. And to my surprise, I learned that some people just receive money. So if you don't find a land allotment, it may be because they receive payment. And there are some Choctaw allotments in the Chickasaw Nation. So whenever you say this is the way it is, there's always an exception. You're in for a surprise. And this may seem really complicated, but there's a method to the madness. It's still complicated, but there is a method, and you can find these allotments. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to find the DAWS number, so you know you have the right homestead. At Muskogee Library, we would get calls from all over the United States, and someone might be from New York, and they said, "I'm so excited! I found my great-grandfather on the Dawes roll." Well, number one, he never left New York. Number two, there's no way he was ever in the Indian Territory. So make sure, with other genealogy sources, make sure that you have the right person. So I like to use the Oklahoma History Center's research library, their index for the Dawes roll, and that's what we'll be using a lot today. But I also use books, and I'll do a little demonstration with those. There are other indexes available. Ancestry and Fold3. Ancestry and Fold3 are commercial sites. And you can pay to get access to them, but lots of larger libraries have them, and you can use them free of charge at the Oklahoma History Center Research Library. And plus, if you come here, you get the help of the talented staff who can help you find those allotments. And they have books too that you can use while you're here. So I'm going to show you the Seminole and Muskogee Creek, because due to the Oklahoma History Center's index for these, it's almost magic the way you find these allotments. They're so much easier than all the others. So I will do a search for Mr. Moore, and I will click on his name, and it's going to take you to the map in the Hastings Map Book for Township and the Range, and that's on their site. We'll find the section, and it will have the individual's name and their dog's number. Often there's other family nearby. And when these people are enrolling, if you don't find your people where you think they should be, if a person was more than one tribe, they can only be enrolled in one tribe. So I was recently doing some Seminole research, and I couldn't find some of the allotments. Well, that's because their allotments were in the Muskogee Creek Nation. So I've already clicked on the name for Mr. Moore. Here he is, Robert Moore. And it takes me to this index to the Hastings Township plats of the Creek Nation. And here's the gentleman's number right here. He's Creek 4239. And then it gives the location. Can't get any easier than that. Township 10 North, Range 14 East, Section 1, and it's on page 91. But I don't even have to get the book out and go to it. I can just click on it. and it takes me to the page in the Hastings book that has his allotment on it. Remember, his section number was number 1. So it's up here in the far northeast corner. Oklahoma is laid out in the public land survey system. And if you want more information on this, there's lots of information online. And you can also go to the public land site. So here's Mr. Moore right up here in the corner. He's in the northeast corner of section 1. So you notice that there's numbers in the middle of each of these sections. And they're laid out with quarter sections. So each one of these quarters is 160 acres to make a section. So we start with 1, we go to the left, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, drop down 1 row, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, drop down again. So we just keep zigzagging back and forth until we get to number 36. And there's 36 sections in a township. So for if you know a seasoned old farmer, they can do this in their head. My father would lean on the back of the truck and talk to his friends, and they could take it down to 2 acres because they were used to this method of land management. Okay, I'm going to blow this up slightly. You'll see Mr. Moore up here. And there's Moore's next door. Here's an Oliver Lee. Here's a Georgiana. Here's a Verna Ellen. Sometimes these took a little different configuration than a square. Sometimes they're a rectangle. So there may be other. Often there's relatives in the area. And we'll go to the Hastings Mount because you can go straight to it and talk about how you can look at the neighbors. Okay, this is a page for the Oklahoma Historical Society, the Research Center, and it's one of my favorite things to use. Every time I look at it, I find something new, and there's lots of Native American resources here. So this is where you search the Dawes Roll. And sometimes I'll just put in a last name and see who all had that last name in the entire Indian Territory. Because some people don't know what tribe their ancestor was. And again, they may not be in the tribe you thought they would be in. So I put in the name Will Rogers, the Cherokee boy, as he was called, one of Oklahoma's favorite sons. So I didn't get Will Rogers when I got 17 William Rogers. Well, which one do I pick? I'm as bad as the people in New York. Well, I know that he was a young man when the Dawes took place, because he was on a cattle boat to South America, and his father contacted him and said, "Will, you need to come back home. They're doing allotments." So he turned around and he came back home. And I also know that his middle name was Penn, Penn. So I'm thinking that one of these William P's is our Will. But this one is only 11 years old. And the other one is 22 years old. That looks like a good choice. And it also helps to know who else was in the family. So this says search card 4747. And you hear people talk a lot about the Dawes census card. So I'm going to click on this one. And the person on the card with Will is a Clement V. Rogers. And his father was Judge Clement Rogers. According to this, he's 63 years old. They're both Cherokee by blood, and they're both 1/4 Cherokee. So that's information you need. You need his roll number right here. You need to know what designation they were. They're Cherokee by blood because there's different designations. And but this kind of threw me off. Why is he a 4th and his father's a 4th? He should be an 8th if his mother wasn't Cherokee. Well, evidently his mother was Cherokee, and she was also a 4th. So that's why Will's a 4th. And there were other children in the household. He had older sisters, but they were married and had households of their own at the time. So they would have their individual census cards. So now that we've discovered what census card we can get, and we got the roll number, this is what a census card looks like. They reside in the Kuiskui district, and here's the card number right here, the census card number 4747. And when they're accepted as members of the Cherokee tribe, their individual number is added next to the name, off to the left-hand side. So that's a number we need to keep in mind. There's lots of information on these cards. There may be marriages, there may be changing names. On a Freedman card, there's information on the back. But that's all we need for the allotments right now. So there's other places you can get the number. There's a book called A Dawes Roll Plus that's strictly Cherokee. There's an index to the final rolls of the 5 civilized tribes. Of course, the Oklahoma Historical Society website, Ancestry and Fold 3, which are commercial sites that you can get free access at many libraries, including at the Oklahoma Historical Society. And you can get actual images of the census card in the packets. Fold 3 specializes in original documents. So, and then there's a new set of books called the Jeff Owen books. So let me show you some of these. This is a 2-volume set of index to the final rolls. But you won't get any additional information, you just get the numbers. This is a Cherokee book, the Dawes Roll Plus, and as you can tell, it gets a lot of use at Muskogee Library. So we finally had to take the pages apart and put them in protective covers to use them. But these books were available at the Cherokee Heritage Center in Tahlequah the last time I was there. And you can probably find them online. So these are some of Jeff Bowen's books, and he's creating more all the time, and they have a variety of Native American information. So these, I'm going to use these because these are my favorite ones to use for Cherokee allotments. So these were created by the Craig County Genealogical Society. And there's 10 books with the information in them. And then there's 2 indexes. So, and I ordered these by contacting them through their site. It's unimaginable how many hours they spent creating these indexes. So I'm going to go to the general index and I'm going to look up Will Rogers and his father. And fortunately, these just have the names, and then it has the Dawes number, their individual Dawes number. And then it has the county their allotments were in. Notice there's abbreviations. This MB is newborn. And then there's abbreviations for the various counties. This person has allotments in both Muskogee County and Rogers County. But there's one gentleman here who has it in 3 counties, and another one who even has it in 4 counties. So sometimes we will have people come in and they say, I know where the allotment was. We used to go to Grandma's every Thanksgiving. But when you look it up, you may find out that she had more land and what you thought. So now I'm going to the Rogers County book, and this also contains parts of Wagner counties and Tulsa counties. I'm going to go to the index in the back, and it will tell what page. So, about halfway back down, you find the Rogers, Clement V, and for some reason they put his age, and they also gave Will's name and gave his nickname. So their allotments are in Township 23 North, Range 16 East, Section 18. And this is really wonderful how this was done in Indian Territory, because although these counties have named, there's no Puss-Cootie county or district anymore. However, this legal description doesn't change. You can go to a modern map and you can find this exact location. So this is what we have. We had a county, range, township, and section number. So now I'm going to go to the Cherokee plat book. And I find the range number first. That seems a little backwards to do it, but there's a lot about this that's backwards. And then I find the township, and then I find the section. And then I can go to a modern map that is marked with the range, township, and section. So let me show you rather than talk about it. This is the copy of the plat book that we had in Skokie. And it's approximately 2 feet by 3 feet. So have your Wheaties before you go lugging it around and putting it on the copying machine. You'll have to copy it in sections or take a photograph. You can also online, because some of the sites like Gmail have good maps. So I've gone to Township 23 North, Range 16 East, and their allotments are in Section 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And right here west of the coffee stain, 17, 18. And you notice that the Verdigris River runs through this section. So, and their allotments are in the southeast corner. And you notice that there's several small allotments. I don't know why they received such a small amount of land. It could be due to the value of the land, because this would be river bottom land next to Verdigris River. And also it's close to the town of Claremont. And town lots could be worth more. And Will was a little late to get there. His boat was a little slow. So this is a blow up of that area. But if you've been to the Rogers Ranch house, you know that the Uliga Lake probably covers most, if not all, of their allotments. So you can go visit the area. You may need a boat to go to part of it, but you can find it. That's a common problem in northeastern Oklahoma. Allotments are now underwater. So there's another way to discover the legal description of these 5 tribes, and that's through the use of family search. They have put on copies of the original applications for land allotments. And for a long time, you had to go to Fort Worth to the National Archives branch to get these documents. But they went to Fort Worth and copied a lot of things that are pertinent to Oklahoma history. And they also came here to the Oklahoma Historical Society. So now you can find these items on their website. So this is a search page. This belongs to the Latter-day Saints. However, you can use it free of charge. You just have to register. And then you can go online and use it for whatever you want to. There's a lot of things like marriage indexes. Oklahoma marriages are on here. The allotments of the 5 tribes. But they also have thousands and thousands of books, and they're digitizing them, and they're putting them all online. And you can sit in your pajamas and read huge books that are 200 years old. So I like to go in through the map, and then I like to go to the United States, and then go to the state. So these are the various items available for Alabama, Arizona. There's even death certificates for Arizona, Arkansas. So here's Oklahoma. And the very first thing on this list is the Oklahoma applications for allotment by civilized tribes. And these folders can be several pages long. A good resource though for Choctaws and Chickasaws is a book called Index to Choctaw Chickasaw Deeds and Allotments. And it was published by Hastings in 1908, and a supplement was published in 1910. We had 2 copies of this at Muskogee, so check WorldCat to see what libraries closer to you have this. And it will probably be in the archives because it's over 100 years old, and every copy that I've seen is rather fragile. But they had complete legal descriptions of the Choctaw and Chickasaw allotments, which can be rather complicated. I was doing research on a young girl who was Choctaw, and her allotment was probably divided into over a dozen parcels, and they were scattered all the way from the Choctaw Nation to the westernmost part of the Chickasaw Nation. If you want to know what happened to the land after it was allotted, then you can check the land records after that at the county courthouse. These are located in the county clerk's office, not the county court clerk. I always have to think about that whenever I'm looking for something. Now, which clerk is that? And they have the land descriptions from statehood in 1907 to the present. And it will show each time it changed hands and who bought it, what they paid for it. So these are both mineral and surface rights. I had a young man come in and he was applying for Cherokee, to the Cherokee Nation, and his ancestor had changed his name. And we could not find anything. It wasn't in the Dawes records. It wasn't anything we looked at that had that had the name change. And finally I said, the only thing I can think of is go to the courthouse and go through the land records. And he came back and he said, I found it. It was on a mineral list. It said the man was known by both of the names and named both names. So Grady County has a book with all the allotments listed. This may be true for other counties as well. And that was located in the county clerk's office. And the tribes all have excellent heritage centers with research facilities. So to find these allotment applications, we're going to look one up. I'm going to go to Family Search, I'm going to go to Oklahoma Resources, and then I'm going to go to the allotment applications themselves, and we'll be looking them up by name and number. Now, remember, we're using an individual dog's number, not the census card number. So some of the information that's needed is what designation they fall into. Because remember, Mr. Moore was Creek by blood. The Rogers were Cherokee by blood. But there's also Cherokee freedmen. There's Cherokees by intermarriage. There's Cherokee newborns. There's Cherokee minors. So you need to know what designation. So this is John Watkins, and he was applying for allotments for himself and his 2 young daughters. And this is a form that was in his folder. which can go on for several pages. And he says there's no improvements on this property. It's timberlands containing no improvements. And there's lots of other questions. But you will also find a smaller piece of paper and they will give a legal description. So that's what you need right there. So, and then additional pages gave the description for the daughters. Now, sometimes there was a dispute, more than one person wanted the same land. And so you'll find court cases on this, and you'll find where they had come back and selected other land, or, or they picked their land and somebody came along and bumped them. I read a book about a lady down in Duncan, and she was Chickasaw, but her husband wasn't. But he was entitled to an allotment, but she got first pick. And she picked the property that had their home on it. He had built a barn and cultivated fields and all. But someone else who was Chickasaw requested that land, so he got that land and the improvements. You'll find handwritten statements and letters and mail that's been returned because they moved. So, and you will also find interviews, much like what you find in the Dawes packets. And these have a lot of information for them. I don't know why, people don't use them more, because he names the parents and he says how long he's lived there. They ask him if he names his brother. And he gives a complete legal description of the property, and he tells what the value is. And he says that there's no improvements on it, but there's some areas that's 20 acres in cultivation and it's all fenced. But my favorite question on these is that they would ask them, are there any churches, any schools, or any burial places on this property? Because as a genealogist, we're always interested in burial places. So, again, one of the best sources you can use is Oklahoma Historical Society's research site. But there's also how-to information, which is often overlooked. This particular one is American Indian Land Records. They also have a booklet that's available. So remember, we looked at the Hastings, and it took us directly to it to find Mr. Moore's allotment. Well, for this one, I've gone directly to the book, and it's just like sitting there turning the pages. And why would you want to do that? Or you may want to look for somebody else. We may remember his allotment was in the upper right-hand corner. You may want to walk across the road and look at who's in the adjoining townships, and even 2 or 3 townships over, because it wasn't unusual to have another family member who had allotments 2 or 3 miles away. In this particular book, in the preface, it tells you what those abbreviations mean on the map. C for Creek Indian, F for Freedman, MC for Minor Creek, MF for Minor Freedman, MBC for Newborn Creek, MBF for Newborn Freedman, deceased, and then a homestead. And I know of at least one case where there are some homesteads that were given as allotments in the Cherokee Outlet, which was not part of the Cherokee Nation at this time, and these people had settled out there early, so they were permitted to keep their homesteads up there. So now, as I said, there's always something that doesn't fit in. Well, with the number system for the newborn creeks, the number system isn't like everyone else's. You have to figure it out. So so this is just turning pages. In fact, you can see the preceding page over here at the edge. So, and there's lots of every time I look at the index to the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Library, I find something new, and I thought, oh, I need to look at this. Well, one of the things that I noticed on this is that there's an index to the lifting of land restrictions. So if a tribal member was half or more, there were restrictions placed on their property, and they were named a guardian. And of course, as we all know, some of those guardians were good and some of them were bad. Some of them were horrible. But if after a while they decided they wanted to sell the land, and this land changed hands rapidly. In the 1910 Muskogee County City Directory, I went through and counted all the attorneys. And there were over 70 attorneys in Muskogee, Oklahoma in 1910, which tended to tell me that there was a lot of land changing hands. But another way you might be able to find some information on the restrictions is that the Muskogee newspapers would print, because the court was in Muskogee, they would print whenever restrictions were listed. So you'll find a whole column of people whose the restrictions have been lifted on their lands, and then it could be sold. So, and where can you find some of these things if you aren't in Oklahoma City? And there's something you want to look at that's not online. Well, there's various larger libraries throughout Oklahoma that have these, and the local libraries in these counties usually have local things. Tulsa has an excellent genealogy section and lots of Native American information at the Hardesty. Muskogee has a very large one, emphasizing the 5 tribes. They had a large collection when I went there and all the basics, and we prided ourselves on buying every book we could get on the 5 tribes. So I have haunted junk shops, and in fact, I got 3 copies of the Hastings Creek Plat Mount book for $3 each on one particular successful weekend. And then, of course, your county clerk may be able to help you. So, in conclusion, I'm going to give an unpaid-for advertisement for the Oklahoma Genealogical Society, and they have 2 lineage groups. One is First Families and Twin Territories, and you're eligible for this if you have an ancestor who was in Oklahoma before statehood in 1907. And of course, if you have someone in the 5 tribes or in the Western tribes, you qualify for that. You just have to provide the documentation and pay the small fee. And then there's settlers and builders, and this is in Oklahoma after statehood until 1929. So I have people in both groups. My paternal is in settlers and builders because my Calhouns and my Scots came to Caddo County in 1909. Well, 2 uncles came earlier. They qualified for the other one. So, and then my aunt was born in 1910. So she's also in settlers and builders. But my grandmother's family came in 1900 to the Chickasaw Nation. And so all of them are in First Families and Territories, except my mother, who wasn't born until 1917, and she had to settle for settlers and builders. And you get certificates for both of these. And with the First Families, you get a really nice pin, and you get the bragging rights, saying you're a member of the First Families of the Twin Territories. So I'm going to provide you with my email. I may not know the answers, but I may be able to find them, or maybe I can make up some really good story. But my email is ninnac@yahoo.com. The three N's in the middle are really important. It wasn't a good idea to have three N's in the middle, but that's what it is. The first four letters are the first four letters of my hometown of Minnepaw, which is in it's a Choctaw name, but it's in the Chickasaw Nation. And the last four letters are my initials. So I'll be doing a talk in January for the Oklahoma Genealogical Society right here in the Chesapeake room. And it'll be on favorite Oklahoma research sources. I was asked to do that by the Texas Society because they said researching Oklahoma is like falling into a black hole. And at first I was offended, and then I thought, well, they're kind of right. We are different from anyone else, but you just have to know how to find the holes and how to look into them. So Oklahoma Genealogical Society offers talks, usually sometimes as a fundraiser. The talks at the monthly meetings are free, and anyone can attend. Of course, you're welcome to join. And I do a lot of Zoom talks for societies out of state or libraries. So the Five Tribes talk happens to be a favorite one. So you're welcome to Zoom in too. So in conclusion, I'm going to quote Will Rogers. And the portrait of him here is the one that hangs in the state capitol. So he said, my ancestors didn't come over in the Mayflower, but they weren't there to meet the boat. Well, mine weren't there to meet the boat, but I did have a couple on the Mayflower. So we should all get together and have a happy Thanksgiving. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Let's see if we have any questions. If you have any questions, please do enter those in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. One question I know that people will have is, can you say anything about how different this process is for folks who are doing research on allotments in the western part of the state? Can you just repeat that for anybody who came in a little bit late?
Well, theirs is, I don't know how to determine how to get their numbers, but I know there's plat books available because I've seen a Comanche plat book. So possibly the tribe could help provide some information on that. And one place that I know that's an excellent resource are Greg Boyd's books. He's created first landowner books for a lot of the western counties in Oklahoma. I'm glad you brought that up because he says he's going to do it for eastern Oklahoma too. And not only did he produce these books, he also has a website. And by subscription, you can get access to it. Remember, my family were farming in Caddo County. So often their neighbors were members of Plains tribes. So you will run onto the Smith and then Jones, and you will run onto some Plains tribes name. So those are really interesting to look at. Now, there are some libraries and societies that you can get access to the online resources and not have to pay to look at them. And every once in a while, he offers free access.
Okay.
And so does Fo3, and so does Ancestry for like National Genealogy Day or something.
Wonderful. And we have another question. Is there a map resource for finding the current location of these allotments? I may be able to speak to that. As you mentioned, you can find the township, you can find a legal location by doing the DAW search, right?
Right.
And then you can take that legal location and look on a modern map. You can even, Google Earth actually has an overlay that gives township range and section. And if you There's another presentation on our YouTube page for mapping tips. You can find it there, or you can send an email to me, Christina Wyckoff, at christina.wyckoff@history.ok.gov, and I can share the link to that resource for you. So once you have the township ranging section of the allotment, you can just look for it in the modern map and find that location.
If you just put in the township range and section, you will probably find a map online, especially on like the GIN website.
Yes.
And you find an explanation that helps with explaining the system.
Right.
You'll find on the public land site. And there's also an index for
Yes,
on that site.
absolutely. And you can find township ranges and sections on the topographic quads. They're illustrated on topo maps.
There's some really good explanations for it. And I think there's probably some how-to on the History Center site.
Yes, we do have some more information on that.
And there's maps. There's lots of maps in the microfilm room on top of the cabinets in the back. I just looked one up last week. There's maps of all the counties in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So definitely shout out to the research library. If you are looking to find allotments and you didn't get enough information here and you want to try it out, like you said, Nancy, doing it under supervision of the qualified staff down there is a good way to start.
Right. I have, the book that I use is just a old highway book, and it's got all of Oklahoma, but it happens to be one that's got the township range and sections marked. So I frequently use that to find a modern map and explain to people, if you want to go out and look at this family allotment, you need to go down this highway and up this road.
Right.
So it works.
It does. That's wonderful. So I don't see any additional questions here. If you do have questions, I'm going to jump to your this slide with your information.
Oh, okay.
Really fast.
Kenneth has a question. That's Greg Boyd. And send me an email and I'll get the exact name of his site for you. And because I have access to that site myself, because I'm a member of the Fort Worth Genealogical Society, and that's one of my perks.
Excellent. Yes, so then, yes, you said Greg Boyd is the name?
Greg Boyd,
And
B-O-Y-D.
And
He was in Norman, but he's moved to Texas.
Yes, and if you email Nancy at her address on the screen here, she can get that link to you.
Uh-huh. And I need to learn more about that too. But I'm always fascinated to see the Native American names, right next to my great grandparents and all. And my grandparents farmed in Indian allotment when they first came to the Carnegie area. So I'd like to determine who was a gentleman who had that allotment.
Excellent. So you've got research you're planning and continuing to work on as well.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at our future speaker series and Lunch and Learns in 2024. Thanks so much.